Yeah, front desk. Yeah, could you send some content up? Yeah, no, I mean it doesn't have to be good. Just anything. No? Yeah, okay, fine. Yeah, thank you. All right, we're on our own. Welcome to the Hell Money Podcast. I'm Casey Rodomore, joined by the inimitable Aaron Redwing and Robert Hamilton. Rob, how did your parents decide to name you Rob?
My full name is Robert Donald Hamilton III. So it was kind of already set in place.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So
Robert and Donald are almost the same name.
Almost, right?
Like, it kind of feels the same,
The
right?
vibe of
That's
it, yeah.
Rob said almost, but he actually meant, are you retarded?
I feel like there's a number of nicknames that like it could be Robert or Donald.
Right.
Rob
Like,
and Don. They really. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
Punchy.
Yeah. Rob Don is like not a bad.
No,
Rob
it's a
Don
good
the
one.
third.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
How
it's
do you
pretty
feel
good.
about being the third?
That's an interesting question. It's interesting because you almost get like a certain sense of legacy right out of the gate.
Yeah.
I have a son who's the fourth, right? So
Really?
Yeah.
You kept it up.
I kept it up.
That's actually, honestly, I think that's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's almost like its own sense of like time proof of work too, like
Yeah.
the continuity of being able to keep that, and it means that you probably have a family legacy that you're proud of, and you
Yeah.
want to keep on persisting, right? So that's probably
Yeah, I mean, that's a sign that you did good if your grandchildren, or there's one of them that's,
They don't hate you
third.
so much that
Yeah.
they're like, I can't like put my
That
father's name
abusive
on my child,
bastard.
right?
Right,
Yeah, like
exactly.
for 4 generations, the relationship was at least good enough that you could like name your kid your name and your father's name, and it's like fine.
What do
Yeah.
you do about the second son? The fail son, as it
well,
were.
we'll find out. My wife's pregnant with our fourth, and I don't know if it's a boy or a
You
girl
have
yet.
Oh my gosh.
four.
I
You
have-
have
On the way.
3.5 kids.
I have 3.5 kids.
Wow.
Yeah.
Damn. How is it being a father of 3 so far?
Amazing. It's really special, especially when they get to a certain age where they're able to start playing with like 5 and 4, like they are like their own little play unit. And I have
Yeah.
the 1-year-old, like, and they socialize all the time. It's really awesome. I mean, you've met my wife.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah. She is kind of like the corner rock stone that makes it all work.
Uh-huh.
You know, in the sense of having a strong family unit, and she runs a really good home, right? So
Yeah.
it makes it really enjoyable to have a family.
Yeah.
That's
right,
how I
like-
feel about my wife and our cats.
Yeah.
Rob was also a child bride.
Oh, no shit.
Yeah.
I mean, in the same way that I was, which is just that he got with his wife when you were 14, right?
14.
And
Yeah.
how old was she?
30.
Oh.
Sorry.
No. She's 6 months younger than me because we were in the same 8th grade class.
Yeah. Her name, Jeffrina Epstein.
Yeah. Ghislaine Maxwell.
Just their name.
Wait,
Ghislaine
weren't you telling me the
Maxwell.
other day I kind of have Ghislaine energy?
What
that, or did
Whoa.
Raph tell me
even
that?
about?
I think Raph told me that maybe.
For what?
What did you do?
Like,
I'm
what did
always
you
trying
do?
to social engineer and like set people up. Like
no,
I'm
I
always
don't think
like,
I would have done you dirty like
I think
that.
Raph was the one who said I had Ghislaine energy.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah.
I'm always trying to like social engineer and learn all the secrets.
Yeah, I think
and,
you have
like,
more like Bene Gesserit energy than Ghislaine Maxwell.
well, Ghislaine's kind of Benny Gesserit a
no,
little bit.
Ghislaine's
Ooh.
name starts with the syllable jizz.
That right,
so
that Benny Gesserits would never.
They would
Instead, they went
never.
for Jessica.
Yeah.
So somehow that fit into doing Paul and Jessica.
Yeah.
That's right.
But I don't even know, how did we derail? Oh, I did have a question. Okay, so Rob's a child bride, but also have you have you always been fully doxxed? Like, did you ever have like a non like
No.
pseudonym that you, because you were like Clubhouse, like you're in kind of the pleb Bitcoin maxi social ecosystem, but have you always been like Robert Donald Hamilton the third?
Yeah, I always have been because I had an internet presence pre-Bitcoin and I was on Twitter pre-Bitcoin.
Mhm.
I had a long career. For 10 years, I worked in esports, competitive video games.
What?
Oh,
I didn't even
really?
know that.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
What was that career?
I worked at
Wait,
Major League
Start from the
Gaming.
beginning. How did you get into that? Like,
So,
how did you get into
around
that
the time
job?
I started dating my wife at 14, just playing a lot of Halo and video games.
Uh-huh.
Mhm.
And
How old are you ish?
I am 35.
35. Interesting. Okay, so I played Halo 2, but I was probably a little bit older, like
Yeah,
back in the day.
yeah. So
Remember how good the fucking pistol was?
that was Halo 1.
I played Halo 1.
Halo 1. Yeah, so this is I did not expect it to go here, but that's the Hell Money Pod for you.
That's
Yep.
right.
So Halo 1, I played a lot of Halo 2,
Uh-huh.
and would play it. Xbox Live was just a thing, so online playing like from a home console.
Oh, that's why you're so good at banter and you really like can like when people go
I'm
there,
from
you
the
know how
internet.
to. Yeah.
I'm from
Yeah.
the internet, right?
Yeah.
Like, and understanding internet culture and trolling and understanding rhetoric and stuff, right? And being kind of quick on your feet. So I played a lot of Halo 2, and my family, like my brother did, and like all of our like friends in high school, and just being competitive was like, I just want to do this better and better and better. And there was like this whole competitive esports scene from Major League Gaming for Halo 2. I started posting on their online forums, and they actually gave me a job like, hey, can you help us moderate the forums? I was like, sure. And I was like 15, 16 years old, and I would get
The Bungie
paid.
forums.
This is kind of like crypto,
Not the
honestly.
Bungie, but Major League Gaming forums.
Oh, okay,
You're
yeah.
describing like a crypto, like
Yeah.
a Discord mod.
And so I was like 15, 15, 16 years old, and they started sending me checks to like volunteer time, right? Help maintain the website, right? So I was doing that. I turned 17. They're like, hey, we're doing an event in Jersey. I'm from Long Island. And they said, do you want to come referee? I was like, fuck yeah. So they pay me, put up at the hotel, and I hit it off really well with all the company. And they said, we want you to go to all of our events. So basically, April through September every year, they would do an event in a different city in the States or Canada. And they would fly me out and put up, like, get a travel stipend, like food, hotel, and like a little bit of side cash. And I would referee video games all over the country for basically the time I was 14 to the time I was 25.
That's
That's
fucking
awesome.
sweet.
Yeah. So Halo 2, Gears of War, Rainbow Six Vegas, StarCraft. That was always wild too, because StarCraft is a whole different like culture and scene, like professional video games.
What did refereeing entail?
Yeah. So there were a couple, like the two major things that you were doing was one, the formal score track keeping and reporting which team won and which team lost, because this would be like at live event centers with like hundreds of teams coming in to like compete. And then also enforcing just like making sure no one was cheating or doing anything malicious.
Counting cards, right?
The equivalent of that.
Yeah.
Like, and, or like too aggressive a banter, you could actually get a technical foul, and that would actually impair you in like the map selection.
No,
or like
gamer word is off limits.
Yeah, gamer words were definitely off limits, and it was always funny too seeing the different cultures of like the Gears of War community were just like street brawlers. Like I like almost had to like break up fights when the Gears of War players would fight versus like the Halo guys.
You know, that does not surprise me.
Versus,
that does
like-
not surprise me.
Versus like StarCraft 2, it's like very formal, like professional and like very courteous. It probably comes more from like, you know, Korean culture, like a
Yeah.
lot more like respect and structure.
Mhm.
And so I did that for 10 years. And so I was always online talking about video games beforehand and like esports and stuff. And then I was the token Bitcoin guy in a lot of the esports circles. So like my buddies, and I was the guy that would tell my friends to buy Bitcoin.
Mhm.
It's around the time I got into Bitcoin in 2014, end of 2013, 2014. I was working there full time.
Mhm.
I went to college, and then they just hired me right out of college, and I was working actually in their ad server. So all of like, they would hit a button like during the live stream and like ads would show. I was slotting up all of those and making them all work, making sure all the sponsorship deals, like we were showing enough ad impressions.
Interesting.
Yeah, so that was like my whole like right out of college, just working on all of that. And then I would still go to the events and referee and like, you know, so it's like a whole online culture that you would have intersections with in person. So it overlaps a lot with crypto.
Yeah.
But I was always the token Bitcoin guy. It was around the time I got in. And then I remember one day I got pulled in, one of the executives pulled me in like, hey, I lost all my Bitcoins on this Mt. Gox thing, and I just got like lost, right? And I was like walking through, I was always the technical guy kind of walking through all that stuff. So I was always talking about Bitcoin a little bit, but I was always just public. And that's why I was always kind of like a docs name.
Same here. Like, because my last name is so unusual, after a certain point, I just always used it as my screen name everywhere.
Right.
And so there was no question of like, was I going to be doxxed or not? You know, I just slowly doxed myself because nobody else is named Rotomore except like my dad.
Is there a
Right.
competitive World of Warcraft scene? Yeah. Okay. My dad's like a big WoW player. Like
Yeah.
not competitively, just, you know.
So the big ones were like
my parents'
3v3s, like there's battlegrounds you could do like 40 versus 40, 20-20, 10-10, and like 5-5 or 3-3. Like in the 3v3 ones, we do tournaments for them too. There was the whole time. Major League Gaming got bought by Activision Blizzard.
yeah.
So
yeah.
between World of Warcraft and StarCraft, like those were all like big things that were part of that.
Yeah, I remember that being a whole drama for my like that's a whole world that my dad is a part of that like I never understood and never was like engaged with, but it was always like I would text my dad and he wouldn't respond, and then I'd be like, bro, you never respond to my text, and he'd be like, just join my Discord server, I'll respond there. And like it was
Wild.
like a whole
Yeah.
a whole
Ping me on
world.
Discord.
Like literally, yeah.
I never got into World of Warcraft. I played it a little bit, but it was just too much of a long-term time commitment. And then I started getting older. I was like, I just don't have time to do
Indeed.
the investment.
I
to
honestly don't know how my mom puts up with it, but she's like, oh, well, you know, at least he's not out like drinking and cheating, you know? Like he's just playing WoW at home. It's fine.
Yeah.
I know where he is.
I actually do want to get a little bit into playing WoW. I think the thing about WoW is that it's only fun with friends. It's only fun with friends.
You need a social element.
Yeah, because the game sucks. The game sucks for a lot of reasons. So like, just find a friend, do the free trial up until level 20.
Yeah.
And then like you're done. Never touch it again. You got the social leveling up experience. You had a good time. You went to Booty Bay, you know.
Right. It's almost like designed to just like suck, because it's about like it's a time commitment to be able to get all of the
Yeah,
things, and
yeah.
you need camaraderie and friendship
Yeah.
to make that
Yeah.
worthwhile.
yeah.
Yeah. I think it's also really interesting. It's kind of this artifact. Like, it was popular at a time where a lot of the audience had dial-up modems, where dial-up modems were kind of still a thing.
Mhm.
And so it had to work off of like, go get a CD at the store and like play over like a shitty
Mhm.
connection. And so it can't do any sort of fast twitch anything
No.
or whatever. It has to. There's weird constraints in online games. Like one of the things that I most dislike about MMOs is that the world can't change as a result of individual actions.
Yes.
Because everybody is in the shared world. So like you kill the villain, it's not like the villain can stay dead. The villain has to appear the next day because other people are going to kill it too, as opposed to single player games, which can change dramatically.
Yes.
Yeah. So it's only the camaraderie that makes it a point.
Yeah.
And then it's like I never had friends to get into that shit.
The exception to this would be like EVE Online.
Yeah. Right.
So EVE Online, I played that for maybe a month and I was like, this is too much for me. It's basically Excel spreadsheets. It is a video game.
No joke. Yeah. Excel spreadsheets in space.
Yeah.
Yeah. And like, it's really funny. You start playing EVE Online and you like are, flying your spaceship and you're doing your routes. And as you graduate through your like EVE Online, like corporation of players, eventually you're just like a middle manager. You just literally have fucking spreadsheets.
You have a
and you're like,
company treasury. You're managing the guild funds, and there's treachery people like will spend 5 years pretending to be part of another guild, and then they get like the keys to the treasury, and then they just yeet everything.
I
It's
actually-
like hundreds of thousands of dollars. They just do a heist.
I started a Ponzi scheme in EVE Online.
Say more.
So it's called Kaiju Collective. I made this like crazy website, and I was all like, "Oh, we're doing like quantitative finance, like quantitative trading," And I paid some Japanese voice actress with a pretty heavy Japanese accent to record like a voicemail. So you would call this number that was on the website, and she would go, "Oh, welcome to the Kaiju Collective. We are not here right now. Please leave your message." And then she'd say the same thing in Japanese. So it was like very like, oh shit, like these fucking Japanese people going crazy with their quantitative finance. And I wrote this whole like back end where it would use the Eve single sign-on API. You could sign on and then deposit money, and it would show you your balance going up. It would show you your Ponzi balance going up in real time. You could watch the number go up in real time on the website.
This is all just crypto.
Yeah. Well, and the reason that I did this, the reason that I felt okay doing this is that this is part of EVE Online. Scams are explicitly allowed on EVE Online. They're part of the rules. I would not have done this in a game where it was not explicitly part of the rules.
Yeah.
And I started getting money. I just hung out in like Jita and I like spammed and like people would sign up. And but the problem, so I was like spamming. I think I got like over $500 real world dollars worth of ISK, which is the in-game currency.
Yeah.
And then a mod pinged me and was like, "Is this a scam?" And I was like, "Yeah, of course it's a scam, bro. Like, what are you talking about?" And he was like, yeah. So you can't use the single sign-on API to scam people.
You have to scam them.
It was a specific rule.
Yeah.
They wanted people to make useful apps that you could trust with this API. So you're not allowed to do scams. So due to regulatory interference, I had to refund everybody their initial deposits.
It's crypto.
Which is
Yep,
bullshit.
it's crypto.
It's such bullshit because
Government getting in the way of true, honest innovation.
And the Trump administration, you can get away with this.
Yeah,
now.
now it's fine. Get back on there.
But like I'm actually still upset about this because like there were legendary Ponzi schemes that were so large that they like destabilized the economy of EVE Online. Like everybody's getting into it. And mine was like so good. It was so clean looking. The website was so good. There was like a video of a ship. Like I had like this persona, like all this shit. This was going to be like a major event in EVE Online's history. And I worked so hard. I was programming Go at the time, and I wrote I wrote a custom backend in Go to handle the deposits and the withdrawals, like everything, and fucking regulatory interference.
Yeah.
And that's when I realized that Bitcoin was our savior, and I hated the government. That's
that was
the origin
your
story that
backbone.
I've been concealing the entire time.
There you go.
It's a little unsavory.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's pretty unsavory. I think you can still see it on my website. If you go to my homepage.
I was going to say you probably were at Rotomore on the site or whatever, fully doxed.
No. It was I actually think,
Japanese name?
No, I actually think my name was Ord. Yeah, I'm
What?
pretty sure my name was Ord.
What do you mean
Yeah,
your name was Ord?
I
What do
seem
you
to
mean?
remember
What
that.
do you
Yeah.
mean? Like how?
This
what?
is deep
My
lore.
character- my
This is
char-
deep lore.
The character name was Ord.
But like why?
It was like 3 characters, and I grinded like a bunch. I was like trying to find a 3-character.
No.
Yeah,
That's
pretty sure.
insane.
Yeah,
No fucking way.
Nominative
pretty sure.
determinism or something like
nominative
that.
determinism. Yeah, that's right. No, I mean Ord is a great syllable. There's no other way to put it.
It's the Chicago airport too.
O'Hare.
Ooh, yeah, O'Hare.
O'Hare.
Yeah. Anyways, back to Rob.
Oh my God! Wow, yeah,
Yeah.
we really.
Yeah.
But that uncovered some deep lore on both sides.
So
to be
Yeah, that was
honest.
very good.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I was always a dox name. That's what
Yeah,
gets back to,
okay.
right? So
yeah. As was Casey because he was Ord
Yeah.
when he was running his first Ponzi.
First Ponzi scheme. Yeah. If somebody figures out how
Casey order more.
Bored is a Ponzi scheme and I can make money off of it, please let me know. I don't know how to.
Right in the comments below.
Where's the yield? Show me the yield, please. But okay, so then whence from Major League Gaming in your like life path, the life arc?
The life arc would be
of the Robert Hamiltonian.
It's an interesting just like parallel track because I got into Bitcoin end of 2013-ish. My buddies were all and this is around the tail end of my Major League Gaming days. Well, yeah, like maybe a year left, but 2 years. All my buddies were telling me about Rob, you're Ron Paul and the Fed gold bug guy. You check out this Bitcoin. I'm like, whatever, nerds. Whatever. Like as always is
that
the case.
Somehow was too nerdy for you.
It was just like I had one or two buddies that kept telling me about it, and I just couldn't quite wrap my mind around it for whatever reason. And then my buddy, a different bunch of my buddies started ironically mining Dogecoin, which just got created. So I was mining full Dogecoin blocks on my GPU.
Damn.
And probably the biggest bag I ever fumbled. And and you know, I was playing about that and I understood that this was like parody and satirizing. I was like, okay, it's like I'm touching this tech. I understand there's something here. Let me go to the New York City Bit Devs meetup, right? And I was like, Bit Devs number 8 or 9 in like the end of 2013.
Was Jay there?
Yeah.
Hell yeah.
Yeah. I actually credit him as the man who orange pilled me. Because I like go into those meetups and then I would like watch Andreas Antonopoulos videos and like go around our Bitcoin because like that's really all there was for content.
Yeah, I was
really
on our Bitcoin, the Reddit Bitcoin. That was pretty good until I don't remember exactly when it was, but definitely the block size wars and weird political shit just meant that it turned into like a propaganda fest.
Yeah. Exactly.
Except like Greg Maxwell like still had the patience to like be on there all the time.
He's still there right now.
Yeah.
It's wild. It's like the one place he kind of like casually
he must
hangs out.
like fighting with people online, I guess.
I think he does.
A lot of people do, many such cases.
Yeah. And that's why you go to Reddit because it's a lot of people to fight with.
Oh, it's the worst, yeah.
Yeah. And so this whole time too, in parallel, I'm just life and career. I took all my digital advertising experience and all the stuff I was doing at Major League Gaming. I started working at ad tech, advertising technology companies, which are basically the whole back end of the advertising monetization of the internet. I honestly was working there for a long time, and I got to a point where I started not feeling challenged, and I went and did a full dive in of a coding boot camp, and that's actually when I fully programming.
How old were you?
I was 29. I think it was like 6 years ago.
Super cool.
Yeah. And I just wanted to like actually, and Bitcoin is actually what inspired me to learn how to program more. And so I was kind of like starting to do programming stuff because of Bitcoin. I picked up C++ for Dummies. I was reading that on the train and I was like trying to understand more and more of how this all worked. And then I went to go work at IBM as like a advertising consultant using the stuff I was doing. Always following Bitcoin throughout all of this. And then I became a data scientist at IBM, doing full on like large data modeling, going through petabytes of data. So I worked on the acquisition for the weather company. IBM bought the weather company and just doing like really interesting like weather modeling. So you could take store receipt data and weather patterns and like also like location of where people were going, like looking at the weather app and being able to do like deep analysis on like, hey, this time of year in these zip codes, with these weather patterns, like any histamines are gonna be spiking because of pollen count. So like biflonase, right? And so like kind of money balling, which was one of the names my boss used to give me, like going through and understanding like how you can on the margin make advertising more productive and higher impact, which means you can charge a higher price for it. And that's a market differentiation. If everyone's just like, you're a random user ID on the internet and I don't know who you are, but I know that you're actually in an area with a high pollen count, maybe I could get marginal conversion value if I do that, right? So it was like kind of like adding data to enrich online advertising and auctioning. I did that for a while in like large scale data projects like this while I was there, doing a lot of work in PySpark and like Hadoop, like all of these, because I was going through petabytes of data to understand from the weather side and the location data side to understand like how to do this analysis. And I was working at, by the end, like 70, 80-hour weeks, and I got really burnt out, just had my second kid, and I quit. I was like, I'm done. This is now, we fast forward a little bit, this is now 2022. This is 21. Yeah, this is 2021. And I'm kind of like hanging out. And
you're like, we're in a bull market. I don't need you.
Yeah, it was right. And
you're like, bro, I got a couple Bored Apes. I'm fine. I'm set for life.
That's right. And I started posting more about Bitcoin more too, because it was more and more it's like consuming my attention and time and like interest. And I felt also like my understanding technically was the way I describe it is like I just went to BitDevs for 10 years and just kept asking dumb questions until I understood it. And then basically hanging out for a bit, and I started getting stir crazy. Started getting really stir crazy. And the Clubhouse is happening at this time. So it's like in the middle of the pandemic. I would get on Clubhouse and people would talk. There were these Bitcoin rooms, and I would talk about, people would talk about Bitcoin. If there's ever a way you want to like provoke someone on the internet is just say something wrong. And I'm like, well, who are these guys? This is fucking, you're idiots. Like I'd raise my hand, go on stage, like, who's this Rob guy? I don't know who he is. And I would start explaining how Bitcoin worked. And then I started getting like this like social circle of people from Clubhouse. And it was an interesting time because during the pandemic when I was like locked in, I got to meet NVK, Jimmy Song, American Hodl, Brad Mill, like all these different like Bitcoin people. And I got to like become friends with all of them. And that was for probably 2020 is when that all started, but then through 22. And then the idea came up for, well, one, I was getting stir crazy, wanted to work. So I started applying to companies in Bitcoin, realizing that like I know enough about Bitcoin, I could start being able to do that. In the end of 2021, I went on my first Bitcoin podcast, What Bitcoin Did with Peter McCormick. And it was totally unrelated to everything about Bitcoin. It was about Eric Weinstein and Peter Thiel. When Eric Weinstein had a podcast called The Portal, his first episode was with Peter Thiel, and they talk about like the embedded growth obligation and like all these like very Thiel things, like bits versus atoms, and like the stagnation of all of like human progress is happening in this world of bits and computers, and like atoms haven't moved a lot, like in physical space, like advancements. And I did a podcast and I wrote an article for Bitcoin Magazine. And then Peter had me on as like a random nobody. And then people started following me. And then that's all started dovetailing into one day I was applying through jobs, and American Hodl said, Rob, you're way too smart to be working for someone else in Bitcoin. You should kind of do your own thing. I was like, okay, like if I want to be an entrepreneur, what does that look like? I want to find something that's a compelling, big problem that I want to try and tackle and solve, and the idea for insurance and Bitcoin. And that's kind of the loose origin story weaving of my personal career and my Bitcoin journey to get to where I am now. And that was all January of 2022, and then started the company from there.
When did so you started it in January 2022?
Yeah, it was an idea like then.
And what was the original idea?
The original idea, and this is talking about like iterating fast. The original idea, the core premise was that Bitcoin as a capital asset, there's necessary financial infrastructure that needs to be built out that no one's really working on, and insurance being that. And what you have right now is just with custodians, they'll happily charge you like an asset under management fee, but it's a really upside down relationship because they just keep, taking fees. And if they blow up, you're the one who's losing, right? And the more natural arrangement, if you're going to have a counterparty as a custodian, should be an insurance contract. I pay you a certain bit as an insurance premium, and if something goes wrong, I'm made whole. I'm not made the bag holder, right? If you are incompetent. So it's a skin in the game alignment, just from independent of the tech, just like that was the core premise to solve. I had this idea for like this initial thing. And what I did was I basically rented an Airbnb for 2 weeks, and I did like a very loose, quick hackathon that was basically akin to like a not proof of reserve, but basically proving that you have control of keys in a 2 of 3 multisig, and like starting to like use that for underwriting for like small amount retail policies. And that was the initial idea. And going through 2022 was a journey of skilling up and understanding insurance structure, iterating on just like the product design and thinking about it. And then came to an inflection point at the end of 2022, realizing that like small little retail stuff wasn't going to be a good scaled business, wasn't going to get really any success. So I raised like an angel fundraising round all from Clubhouse, right? So Clubhouse is where people are like, oh, Rob's starting a company. Like I'm in. And then one of the people that said I'm in was actually my co-founder, Becca. And she leaned in aggressively with helping me out on a lot of like mechanical pieces. And then she asked to become co-founder with me. And that was like day 10 of the company. And the rest was history, kind of going down that path. And then I was trying to understand at the end of 2022, I want to insure large commercial institutional amounts because that's where the insurance market side capital pools are way more interested in. And 2, that's actually from a business that's like a sustainable venture scale thing. And also, how could I provide better security and add service to the chain, not just be like an insurance broker buying and selling insurance. I wanted to actually be making the bucket of InsurTech. I wanted to actually be leveraging technology to make it lower risk. And I was going to start writing custom Bitcoin scripts. And my buddy Vic, who worked at CoinCat at the time, but formerly he was at Blockstream, and said, Rob, you just check out Miniscript. And I was like, the fuck's Miniscript? And he's like, Rob, you're great, you're smart, you're not that great at writing raw Bitcoin script, check out Miniscript. And I went down this rabbit hole of a way to safely write larger, more composable, smart contracts on Bitcoin, leveraging multi-sigs, Timelocks, multi-thresholds of thresholds, like multi-sigs of multi-sigs, in a way that allows you to know that if you set it up correctly, there's always a way you can satisfy and spend the money. You're not going to foot gun yourself, because all of these individual opcodes have all these weird corner cases. And Miniscript, I call it like bowling with bumpers. Like, as long as you have the requisite key material, you will be able to spend the money and kind of do exactly what you kind of designed out.
What is Miniscript?
So it is a program. It's like an abstraction on top of Bitcoin script. So Bitcoin technically could have 256 opcodes base 2, but there's only like 130 that are really usable. And of those, there's maybe Miniscript it takes like 25 of them and puts them
a lot
into
of them
fragments.
are weird or banned or useless.
Yeah. Weird, banned, or useless is a great way to put it, right? And then you have you put them into fragments of like set like boxes of how they can get constructed, and they become like little Lego bricks, and you can combine them all together to make more advanced stuff. And it solves so many problems, like, for example, constructing the witness. Right, if you're writing a custom script, you have to custom write that witness to be able to actually redeem the funds on chain. Bitcoin Core supports Miniscript, so that you're able to, if you give it a descriptor that has Miniscript, it'll actually give you the PSBT ready to go with the witness and everything else, right? And it kind of like very cleanly handles like Timelock management and all these different pieces. And then now hardware wallets like also support it, right? So you have a good interoperability base of all these different systems that just makes it really easy for an application developer like me, who's not on the core protocol, to whiteboard out a concept of something. Like, a very simple example I should have started with this is like, you can set up with Bitcoin a 2 of 3 multisig, where if the money hasn't moved in a year, it becomes a 1 of 3, or maybe a 2 of 4. You can start you can add a key that can't do anything normally, but it could be an emergency extra key that you bring in later, right? So all of these different things
would just be really hard and really error prone to write by hand. Like, you could, like Miniscript, you put the Miniscript into the Miniscript compiler and out comes a Bitcoin script.
Right.
But that'd be really painful.
Right. You could, it ultimately compiles to Bitcoin script, right? But if you try to do it by hand and then you accidentally had the opcodes in the wrong order, you did something wrong, maybe there would be a way that someone can spend the money you didn't intend. Like, oh, the way you set up this witness, actually, the script actually means I can put in dummy values in this witness, and all of a sudden I can bypass your whole like script, right? So that's the value of it, is that it gives you certainty that what you want to do is what you actually can enforce on chain.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
It's kind of funny. You are the Miniscript guy now.
I literally like memed it into existence. It's wild because the Blockstream guys, so Peter Willa, Andrew Polstra, and Sanket made this. It was like a 3-year project from like 2018 to 2021-ish. And then they put it on the shelf and no one cared about it. And then I started looking into it and I started talking about it, and just talking about it, like going out. And there's also the guys, the Wizard Sardine guys at Liana Wallet also were on like a similar path. But I just started leaning into it as a point of like Bitcoin education and leaning into this thing of like Bitcoin is programmable money. And my observation was, it was really a shortcoming of Bitcoin companies that this stuff has been sitting there. And how am I walking in as a new person, not leveraging the best of what can be done in Bitcoin? And it gave me a sense of like, how can I be the one who realized that you could do this stuff and start executing on it and make better products and services because of that?
Well, there's something weird that goes on where people don't think simply enough, or people don't like see what's possible and guide their search for what to do based on what's possible.
Mm-hmm.
They have something they want to do, and maybe there is no good way to do that. And what they should do is like shit can that and think of another thing to do.
Yeah.
But a lot of the time they're like, oh, what if we make this weird questionable trade-off and then this weird questionable trade-off, and then like, oh no, now we're doing some weird like fragile like two-way time locking like nonsense, just like really, really complicated. And I think it's really a virtue of an engineer or a product person or whatever. It's just a general virtue that you let what is possible and simple guide what you're pursuing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It sounds like you always started with this very simple desire, right, to build like Bitcoin insurance products.
Yeah.
And then you started looking like, okay, well, how can we leverage, clearly you could always just, send the money to the insurer or some other like thing, but then, okay, how can we make this a little bit better with something that we can do on chain?
Right.
And then eventually stumbled into Miniscript that gave you this really big, nice box of composable tools like Timelocks and decaying multisigs and stuff like that.
Yeah.
To actually like produce a product which is like good, No,
go on.
Well, I was literally just reiterating, like a lot of people don't do that. They just like, heap complexity on complexity and complexity. They have a problem and they're not like, oh, maybe actually this means that this thing, we should rethink this whole thing.
Right.
They're like, let me throw on some crazy bullshit on
Well, I
top.
think part of it also is that like there's this weird like philosophical gap that people have where they think like, oh, well, Bitcoin is great and Bitcoin is going to like become the whole financial system or something. And so now we need to take these pieces of the financial system and we need to figure out how to do it on Bitcoin. And they're not asking the question of like, does Bitcoin fix this? Does Bitcoin make this better? And instead they say, well, because the financial system has all these like stupid fucking trade-offs that don't make any sense.
To make some stupid
then like
fucking
that's fine if
trade-offs
we
that
do
don't
it
make any
too,
sense.
because
Yeah.
that's what it is. You know what I mean? Rather than trying to think like, oh, Bitcoin actually just needs to be a better version of the financial system if it's going to like take over that part of the financial system. It's not a given that everything will be done in Bitcoin just because Bitcoin has certain properties that makes it better than other money for other reasons.
Well, this is also what I get to when I started the company. People were like, insurance is fiat. And I would be like, you're an idiot. Insurance predates fiat currency. Like it's actually
absolutely. Risk sharing.
The
I mean,
idea
like,
of risk sharing, right?
Do you know the like do you have an example of like initial? Yeah.
So Spice and Ship Explorers, what you would have happen is you would have people who were very seasoned sailors, and they would understand like, hey, if you're going to go to India, you want to take this route at this time of year, you want to like do X, Y, and Z. And this became like a codex of like the rules of if you were going to go out to sea, how would you actually, like they became the initial underwriters, the successful merchants who had the experience and had the discernment to understand like what was a good way and a bad way to do spice trading, actually became the initial pool of insurers. You would walk in, right? If you were a poor working class person, you maybe had your entire wealth was the ship, right? What you would do is if you've messed it up, you would just be ruined forever. It's like a risk of ruin, right? And what you would do is you would go to Lloyd's coffee house in London and you would talk to the other sailors and you would actually negotiate out like, okay, I'll give you 15-20% of my cargo. And in the event that I lose everything, you will make me whole so I can continue my sailing career. And this is the whole idea of risk sharing. Actually using risk transferring as a concept, like in the bucket of risk management, what most people you think about is like risk distribution. And that was kind of the core premise I was thinking about with Miniscript was like, how can I add more contingencies to make sure the money doesn't get bricked forever? Right. That's like the core premise of how we've designed the product. But insurance and like underwriting the spice trade, like that was a massive, massive thing. And you would also have insured duties. The sailors would be like, oh, wait, you were around the Horn of Africa in December. And like, oh, wait, like that's going to like wreck your ship. Like we're not paying out your claim. Like, so you had like these rules and like that's the idea of underwriting is you would underwrite your signature saying like, I will, in the event that you wreck your ship, I will come in. And this all predates fiat currency. This is the 1600s we're talking about. Right. So yeah, like that's absolutely. Yeah. And that was kind of the lens of thinking about from a big problem of risk distribution and then wrapping that with risk transferring, which is the insurance contract itself, was going to have to be part of the system. Just it had to be a better way of doing it.
And I'm sure there are other examples of like informal risk sharing that go back to like prehistory, right? Just the notion that, okay, I'm doing some venture, you're doing some venture. We can sort of just pool our risk and be like, we'll do this together. And
hunter-gatherer societies, right? If you're all like in a group and you all go and hunt the lion together, like whatever, like you're all kind of basically like sharing in the upside reward, and you're sharing in the risk too in that sense. But you could also have I would say probably there's a lot of earlier examples.
Hunter-gatherer societies were the original mining pools.
That's right.
So how does the product AnchorWatch?
Yeah.
At what's the website for AnchorWatch?
AnchorWatch.com.
You've got to look at the camera. You've got to AnchorWatch.com.
AnchorWatch.com.
How does AnchorWatch work? What is it?
Yeah, so AnchorWatch is the name of the company, and AnchorWatch is actually a nautical term for the crew of sailors who watch the ship while it's at anchor. And that was the idea of like if we're watching when your coins are in cold storage, we're the ones watching over and making sure they're safe. Right, which is funny because I have like a Google alerts for whenever the word AnchorWatch comes up in like Google hits or the media, and I get all these like really random like sailing blogs about like shipwrecks off like in like Norway and stuff. Like it's very funny to read those. But the product we call it Trident Vault, like multi-pronged security. My Becca came up with that, and the idea how it very basically works is that at the start of your policy, we have a 2 of 3 multi-sig for you as the customer. We have a 2 of 3 multi-sig for us at AnchorWatch. To move the money, both 2 of 3s must sign. It is not a 4 of 6. It's a 2 of 3 and a 2 of 3. And that allows us to instantly, you think about from a risk distribution standpoint, you can't just have someone break into your house, steal your keys, and then instantly send the money. We have to co-sign. And then actually 6 months in, we actually have a degrading time lock where in the event you had 2 of your keys impaired, 1 of 3 from the customer, 2 of 3 from AnchorWatch. And then month 11 of the policy, it's a 1-year policy, in the event you have lost all of your keys, we are able to AnchorWatch have a 2 of 3. Plus, we have a recovery partner, Coin Corner, out of the islands. A Bitcoin exchange, been in business for 10 years. We can return the funds back to you. And then finally, after the insurance contract expires, we actually use Timelocks to, and I'll get to that in a second. It's just your keys as a 2 of 3. So the default arrangement, if we cease to exist, is when the time lock expires, you have your keys, you can just pull them out, right? And I think it's a different relationship to a custodian compared to like getting on the phone and being like, hello, yes, I'd like all of my Bitcoin back, please. Okay, yeah, we'll send it right over. Like the default path is you just get access to your funds again, right? And an interesting thing of how we leverage time locks is we use actual epoch time. We don't use block height, because if you have a paper insurance contract that expires on, May 20th, 2026, I don't want to have to worry about hash rate and block predictability. You're actually able to anchor and do a time lock based on that epoch time. And so that all gets anchored into that. Yeah.
Is there anything that's missing from Bitcoin Script that you would really like to have?
Covenants would be a great thing to start.
Yeah.
Like OpsCTV style covenants?
Yeah, I think like the perfect universe, like to go back to the principle of just like big picture what I want rather than like the specific opcode is I want to be able to have a vault-like architecture where if I want to withdraw money from my deep cold storage, there's an intermediary holding area that's committing to, hey, I'm going to withdraw this Bitcoin to this address in X amount of blocks, but I can see it objectively on chain and I can pull an emergency switch if someone had breached my vault. And like, I think Jameson Lopp and James O'Byrne talk about this of like everything in Bitcoin, the way Bitcoin Script works today is you're basically setting up your fort and you're saying like, you can't get in, I'm gonna have multiple keys, I'm gonna do all this stuff. But if I breach and get everything, I can send all of it to anywhere I want. And the idea that even if you got through that, that's like proactive security, to have reactive security to where I can look at an event happening on chain and say like something is going wrong. I have a window to intermediate like and fix it. Is I think I call it orders of magnitude better security, because right now you have 0 blocks, right? You have to like, if someone were to hack you, you have to like RBF or fix that before a single block comes in. Because once it's in a block, you're not gonna be able to undo it. Whereas this, you can have it in a holding address that maybe is like a 1 day, 144 block time block. That now gives you that it is orders of magnitude better security. You go from less than 10 minutes or 10 minutes to a day. That's massively better. And I think about this not only from my own product design, my own personal interest in holding Bitcoin, I think about it too from Bitcoin as a network. I want it to be easier for individual institutions and people and groups, companies, whatever they are, to be able to securely hold their own Bitcoin, so you don't have this aggregation of coins sitting at custodians. And it's not about the sense of like, oh, you're going to get hacked one day. I also view it from like a meta point of like Bitcoin consensus and like hostile forks and like state capture, that like if you have a bunch of hash rate sitting at publicly traded US mining companies and a bunch of coins are sitting at like regulated, like formal lockdown places, that can cause fork pressures and like unhealthy changes to the protocol and break that stuff down. So just from like a distribution of the network and health of the network and the protocol, I want that. And so CTV is like a low hanging fruit to start, right? And then either an op vault, which is very specific to that.
Can you do a vault architecture using OpsCTV?
You can. It doesn't have, yeah. The answer is yes. It's just not as fully fleshed out.
Got it.
Yeah. James O'Byrne has done a CTV vault architecture. And I think a couple other people have too. It's like, it's a place to start, right? And it's interesting because the way this product works, and you can think about this more generally just in anything you want to do in Bitcoin. If we are a required cosigner, we're able to effectively enforce policy that you would have akin to a vault. For example, our customers may sign up and say, here's my whitelisted addresses. We won't cosign unless it's on that whitelisted set of addresses. So now all of a sudden you actually have a Bitcoin address that off chain we're able to apply these more advanced controls. Another one is like spending velocity limits. We have something called a HODL discount. You're like, hey, this is my deep cold storage. I don't want to spend it all year. We won't cosign the transaction, which means that even if, and we can lower your, and this is actually interesting tying it back to insurance, you've now demonstrably engaged in behavior that lowers your risk. We can lower your insurance premium because of that, right? So thinking about, right. And so most of our customers actually do that. And then that actually makes it a lot more streamlined in mitigating risks. So if someone like a customer's I'm sending all my Bitcoin to this address right now, we're gonna be like, no, you're not. we're not gonna sign it, right? Yeah. We actually disable the send button if you turn on the HODL discount. We disable the send button, so you can log into your UI and look at it, but you can't send Bitcoin.
And what was I gonna say? Oh yeah, so it's interesting with a vault-like architecture. You do have to have a second set of keys, which are your like reactive security keys.
Yeah.
How would you store those in a way which is different than other keys that you use?
Yeah. So there's a couple of ways you can do that through your own access controls at your own company, setting them geographically in different places. I think about it too, and having different intermediaries stepping in as those reactive keys. I've always had this idea that one day reinsurers will hold those keys, because if they're the ones holding the bag on paying out the insurance. So you have an insurance company, right? Like State Farm, whatever, right? They run their policies, they do their business. They can go out to a market and get insurance on the stuff they're selling. And this is more like Lloyd.
Sounds systemic, man.
Yeah. It's the aggregation of. So this is an interesting part about insurance. The key assumption typically is risk distribution, and
it's like they're not correlated.
Exactly. Right. And that's a really important point when you're structuring risk in insurance, is that you don't want to have all of your risk in the same exact bucket or the same type of thing, which is an interesting corollary for Bitcoin, where like you can't 2 of 3 or borrow gold. Right. So geographic, like physical risks, are greatly mitigated already by just having multiple keys.
Right. That makes a lot of sense.
Right. And so you start thinking through all of these things. Bitcoin is a natively digital asset. You can actually leverage it as programmable money in a way that you're actually able to kind of make it a pristine collateral, as people say, but you can also, on the insurance side, make it way more like protective, right? In a way you can't do. And it's entirely uncorrelated to the other risks insurers touch. Right. It's not like a wildfire in California is going to brick all of the Bitcoin insurance policies. Right. And so it's actually, for the insurance carriers, it's a great way to deploy incremental risk, because it's something that is entirely unrelated to the rest of their book of business.
Yeah. There's also like an aspect of, I mean, maybe I'm just like galaxy braining too hard on this, but like if we're in like a nuclear winter sort of like disaster where like multiple places on the planet have been nuked, and like, oh my God, that just happened to be where you had all your keys. We're probably also like not in a digital society at that point. Doesn't even matter if you have Bitcoin.
So this is actually, to this exact point of concentrating risk, your home insurance policy won't cover nuclear fallout. Because if a nuke happens, it's not just your house or like your neighbor's house. It is all of the houses in a 100-mile radius, and that would actually end the insurance company.
Right.
So single, like basically, they're called catastrophic losses.
Acts of God.
Acts of God.
But like, and those things are just excluded, right? An example of that for this is we exclude quantum. So if literally quantum computing came out tomorrow and all Bitcoin private keys are just fucked, then like that's not the risk we are covering. We're covering like your own individual.
GLHF guys.
We're not underwriting the entire Bitcoin protocol.
We're not underwriting. We're not underwriting quantum risk.
Right. So that's like an important part of all that. But yeah, so the reinsurers step in to be able to get that stuff. But I would love the idea of having a reinsurer. If they're the ones that may be responsible for paying out a claim if something went wrong, they could be those emergency backup keys, because they're risk aligned to make sure that they don't fuck that up.
That's interesting.
Yeah. It is actually, I mean, it's really a genius concept that, like exactly what you said, that you can't 2 of 3 your bar of gold. Right. But that if you have these, relatively involved like risk sharing arrangements with like insurance and reinsurance and like principals and like AnchorWatch and like Lloyd's and some reinsurer, that you can start splitting up the keys in some very interesting way that like makes a ton of sense.
Absolutely.
Right. That like everybody is actually like has control to the extent that they are aligned with, the risks or the rewards, avoiding paying out the claim, et cetera, et cetera.
Right. And the entire vault, going through those different layers I explained, never at any point is AnchorWatch able to unilaterally move funds. Right. So like we're not a custodian. There is no way. And this is an interesting point too. When you get your policy, we give you a recovery PDF. You can load that into Bitcoin Core, show it to a friend, and independently verify and run. Like if you want to be like, how do I know I actually have my Bitcoin? It's like, well, here's your script. It's on your insurance policy. You can load it into your node and you can actually independently verify that. Right. So one of the other big pieces unlocking this too was linking a paper contract with an on-chain contract and showing those links. And it goes back to like the Timelock stuff. Like your policy is unique because it ends at this time. And it goes into like the whole idea of how Bitcoin even keeps track of time. Right?
Yeah.
Like it's a really whole different area of Bitcoin that's not often talked about. Aaron knows this already because it's actually how we first met and started talking. But the one piece of information, so Bitcoin is an endogenous system, right? The scripts, the hashes, the keys, like the Coinbase, like it's all, you're referencing the previous hash.
It's all self-contained.
It's all self-contained except for the timestamp the miners put in the block.
Yeah.
And that's how the difficulty adjustment works. And you're able to anchor and use that time of Bitcoin for Timelocks. It's totally enforceable. And so most people, when they use Timelocks, they think about it in block height. But and that's usually because you're doing things endogenous to protocol like the Lightning Network, right? A block gets found, you have a certain amount of blocks to go do something. But since this isn't anchoring to something outside of Bitcoin, like a paper contract, we use the epoch time.
It's interesting. Bitcoin doesn't exist outside of time.
It can't.
You can't.
Yeah.
It has to exist within
so true.
time.
So true, King and Queen.
So true when you think about it.
One thing I'm incredibly jealous of is I think that Lloyd's of London, the building and the history are, one of the coolest places on the planet. It has a huge building in the city of London, which is actually like a very small patch in the center of London.
Absolutely.
And the building has all of its guts on the outside, like the elevator, the heating and cooling, etc. And it's named Lloyd's of London, and it descends from this coffee shop.
Yeah.
So can you describe like what the process was like? Like you're like, when were you like, oh, I'm gonna go to Lloyd's of London and I'm gonna like talk to these people?
That's great. Yeah. So I'm laughing because it was a long journey.
Yeah.
Right. So the initial like first year was us trying to figure out like how are we gonna do this, and we would be like, we're gonna do Bitcoin insurance, and we would like literally knock on the doors of every insurance company, and they were kind of like, they would take calls. They were super interested, but it was more of like for them to do like a brown bag lunch and learn about Bitcoin. It wasn't to actually do business, and they'd be like, interesting, no thanks. And then we kept on iterating and cycling, and we get to like, you know what, you've put some effort into this. If you can get reinsurance, you can use our paper. So this goes into the insurance versus reinsurance. So what you can do in insurance if you're starting a product is you can have an insurance carrier be like, I'm going to use your insurance licensure and I'm renting your paper. Right. And the idea is that it's
you just said a bunch of things that I have no idea what the fuck they mean.
I was about to explain. So like you can't just sell insurance out of your basement, right? It's like even the lesser regulated stuff.
What if I trust that guy a lot?
Right. So you have to have a official licensed insurance carrier sell the policy, which means that I'm not an insurance carrier, but I can be like, hey, do you want to have this in your thing? And they'll be like, oh, cool, it's a great idea, whatever. Or they'll say, you can use our insurance license, but you need to be reinsured. So if something goes wrong,
they'll partner with you, but they don't want exposure to the risk.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Right. And so we went through this whole journey, and they were like, if you can get 100% reinsurance, we're business. Like, amazing, cool. And then we started like talking to different reinsurers, and then eventually,
and that's where you go to the guy in the basement.
Yeah.
And you're like, bro, you good for it?
Yeah, right. It's just all the way down, just going deeper and deeper. And we found basically going to Lloyd's specifically, we got 100% reinsurance, and then we went back to those insurance guys. We're like, hey, like, we got it figured out. Do you want to do this? And they're like, you did it. Oh, no. And then we ended up what's called being Lloyd's of London cover holder. So we are direct agents for Lloyd's of London. We do the underwriting, the distribution, the sales, the designing of the program, the writing of the policy. And when you get your policy, it's a Lloyd's of London policy directly. And so that allowed us to basically cut out the insurance carrier middle. We just go directly from Lloyd's.
And is this because Lloyd's is essentially a bunch of degenerate insurance weirdos that are like, seems like this is a good idea,
so
you know?
Talking about that building, like it's massive staircases, like all of the escalators they have all over the place. It's a really weird building. The architecture's like really interesting. I always describe it as the New York Stock Exchange for risk. So you go up like out of the lobby to like any of the floors, and it's just rows of desks for like hundreds of desks and multiple floors. And it's every insurance carrier in the world, like big ones, like have a desk or many desks there. And they're just trading, buying and selling risk. And then eventually there only could be so much car insurance and house insurance in the world. And this is where you get all the weird stuff. Like if you're Serena Williams, you want to insure your elbow. You're Scarlett Johansson, you want to insure your face because your income's tied to that. They will do all of the weird stuff. And there are little pockets called syndicates where you'll have carrier A, B, and C come together and like, okay, like we're going to focus on this risk, right? So there was one that basically does some crypto stuff, and walking through with them, what was really wild to me is how knowledgeable they are about all of these inner mechanics. And one of the first questions when I was explaining with them, like, are you using MPC or Bitcoin native script? And I was like, oh.
Yeah, good on them.
And I understood why, because they're the ones holding the bag on all these insurance policies.
They have to be.
Right.
Yeah.
So Coinbase has like a $300 million policy, but they have $400 billion of assets under management. Right. So to them, like it's still a $300 million policy is a big payout, but I look at it from the customer value side, they're not actually getting what they need to make it all work.
Yeah.
So I slowly like walked through literally Miniscript build. I literally influenced my way through Twitter into capital markets to talk about the nature of distribution of risk. And I broke it down in their terms. Distributing risk, multiple contingencies, it's programmable money. There's more than one way you can spend money from this address. And what we did was we designed a product where the tech mitigates a lot of the risks, and then the insurance covers what it can't be covered. Like one, in that recovery layer, if we're just like totally criminally negligent, we just start like stealing people's money, like colluding, that's covered. Big one was violent coercion wrench attacks. We got that is part of the inclusion as well, right? Also, physical destruction of keys, all like a long list of things you would normally associate with like the risk that would be associated with Bitcoin and cold storage. But that was just like a year, 18-month long journey of education, and because it's a capital market saying, hey, will you lock up capital to do this with us? Yeah, so it was a long journey, but it was fascinating getting into the details with them.
How did you get the appointment?
You have to get a broker to go to Lloyd's of London. You can't just like not walk in the front door and be like,
so you
hello.
had to get a
like,
broker to go with you to Lloyd's of London.
Yeah, exactly.
And then what was it like showing up at the door in this hollowed institution?
I have a photo.
Hallowed
Becca and I
institution.
took like a nice photo. It's actually it was really wild. It was like a certain sense of like, I've been working and like designing all these like technical things and thinking about it it was basically 2 years, like a year and a half before I got there. And I was like, it's way more real now.
Yeah.
Like very surreal in that sense. They have a bell in the center of the lobby from like the 1700s. And what happened was they insured that ship and it sank. And then in the 1900s, like in the mid 90s, I think maybe earlier than that, they went to the wreckage and recovered it, and they had the logs from the 1700s that ship was insured by Lloyd's, so it's now Lloyd's property.
Hell yeah.
So this is a concept of insurance called subrogation, where if you get into a car accident and they pay out your insurance claim, they own the scrap metal. It helps them recover some of their costs because it's a transference of property. You lost this, we're going to take that now. And that was part of like the cargo on the ship, and the bell was still there. So they have that as kind of like a multi-century showing the commitment and like the trust and relationship and like kind of that paper trail and logging from Lloyd's to kind of tie that all together. And it was very wild. I had never been to London before. That was fun too. City of London, its own little like unique sub fiefdom within the larger London system. You see all the lions heads, like as you're going through, all the entrances are guarded by these lions, like statues. It was wild. And it was just really, it was very humbling just kind of going through that whole journey. Yeah.
So I feel like, I guess something that comes up, and you've thought through every detail basically of like the insurance side, which is a combination of technical, game theory, social understanding. Was that something that you were always interested in? Like, I guess I kind of understand like your journey, like to Bitcoin overall, but then there's this whole other layer of like understanding like what are all the things that could go wrong from an insurance perspective. And it's not like you came from an insurance background. You know what I mean? So like was that you that filled in a lot of those details, or did you like, what was that just interesting to you, or what?
Yeah. And this goes back to, as I started my Bitcoin journey, I would sit at these bit devs and they would be doing pull request review for C++ code. And I had no idea what the heck was going on. And I started watching, like I started like basically slowly building my knowledge. And I got to a point where I understood like the current rhetorical framing, the debates about like why Bitcoin is good, and the technicals of like you have a seed phrase and then you do this and like you get all these pieces. And I was kind of like, this can't be the end of my Bitcoin knowledge journey. And so then with this core premise of insurance as a capital market will be foundational to Bitcoin in a future where Bitcoin has value and meaning because you insure things that have value to you. How do I push that forward as like a weird concept that had nothing to do explicitly with Bitcoin, and then understanding how do I dig deeper on my Bitcoin knowledge to be able to fill in those gaps.
Right.
And that was a lot of iterating, thinking through different product design decisions, wargaming things out, and like Becca and I going back and forth and understanding the construction and pieces of all of that.
Well, and as a triple water sign, you have a deep understanding of like human behavior in general.
That's right.
And your midheaven is the last degree of Pisces. So you have the wrapping up of all life, kind of like insurance angle. So
yeah,
there really isn't a better guy for the job.
I appreciate that. Yeah. So in December of 23, I signed up for an astrological reading with you.
Of course.
And we went through that, and I type at 150 words a minute. And I just basically, like a stenographer, wrote down every single line of that. And I occasionally scroll through and read that too.
So you're covering all your bases, really. Yeah.
No, I listen.
An astrological insurance policy when there's extreme conjunctions, you know, you gotta
you should insure yourself against having a Scorpio child.
We should actually just start looking at like in the KYC the date of birth and just doing like astrological like risk assessment.
Astrological racism is what it's called.
Is that actually a thing?
Well, yeah, right. Like you can't ask someone's sign when you go to hire them because it's like a form of discrimination. It's already a thing.
Wow.
Really?
Yeah.
Huh.
But that's part of why people do the Myers-Briggs and Enneagram stuff is because you can discriminate against people for their Myers-Briggs or Enneagram type because it's a quiz that you take, but you can't discriminate against someone for their astrological because it's an inherent.
INTJ.
Yeah. I think I'm like ENFJ. Okay. Whatever Obama is, that's the one I am. But we're also both Leos, so it's like duh.
I think I'm a BIGPP.
Boo.
Big PP.
Yeah, we got it. No,
You
we got it. We got
yeah?
it.
Okay, good.
Okay.
What are some like spaces or like lines of inquiry that you think are interesting to follow that other people might want to follow? You're on your Bitcoin insurance journey. Any sort of like Miniscript, capital markets, risk thing that you're not doing, like just ideas or things that have a lot of potential.
So as a general bucket of anything you want to do, you can set up basically emulation of whatever service you want. I made an example before that, like we're able to say you can't spend money from this vault or to only these whitelisted addresses. You could use a very simple example would be whoever the person is has a key, this product application service, whatever has a key. And then maybe after some amount of time, it goes back to just the user's key. You now have a system where the user can't be rugged. They have to knowingly consent to each step of the transaction, either with the cosigner or after some sort of like fallout time lock time. Now you can start doing any sort of enforcement service. And this was like a mental model I had, and just the idea of co-signing as a way to add value for any product and design you're doing in Bitcoin, whatever you want that to be. So if they're like, if only there was a way we could do X, it's like, well, you can just have that do X logic off chain as a signing service. And then you can set it up in a way where you actually can't rug people, right? And that's, I think, just from an interesting product design too. I think a lot of people, when they think about just making a multi-sig bridge, like even just like that, just like why just 2 of 3? Why not more complicated, right? Like in the sense of having many ways that you can recover the funds over time. I think in the capital market stuff, I've been so narrowly focused on the insurance piece of it. I would say anything that you think is being done in the current financial system, like people are doing this now with like lending, like futures contracts. I'd have to think on that more. But for me, I would just, as a general piece of advice out there, that you could start doing stuff with either the idea of time locking or the idea of like enforcing rules with a co-signing agreement where you can be non-custodial, helping add product value service. And that's an interesting thing because you're creating value by being that co-signer, and you're able to enforce rules, and you can design products and companies around that service. It's a whole different, just like the sky's the limit there on how you want to do it.
Yeah, we need to be time locking inscriptions and runes.
Mm,
There was a guy
absolutely.
who DM'd me like when Trump first tweeted like the I'm freeing Ross Ulbright, and then he like corrected
Ross Ulbright,
he
Jesus
corrected
Christ.
the Truth Social to say Ross Ulbricht very quickly. He
Yeah.
did, but some of us got the screenshot when it was still Ulbright. Whenever that happened, there was like maybe I think like 6 or 7 people, myself included, who like inscribed either like the tweet or like some Ross art or whatever. Like it was kind of cute because it was interesting to see how people chose to memorialize that moment, you know, but like you could look back in the historical record and be like, oh, this is when Ross was freed. And like maybe someone inscribed a little free Ross art. Maybe they inscribed the tweet, like whatever. And one of the guys who inscribed one of the tweets DM'd me because he saw that I tweeted about it, and he was like, hey, we should try to time lock these for as long as Ross was in prison.
You could do that, yeah.
Yeah, but I was like, I don't know how.
Got it. Yeah.
I was like, cool idea, bro. I don't have any time for this, but it's cool.
You could. You definitely could. And tying that into also like ideas for product and services, I think something that's massively underutilized is open timestamps. Right? You could prove that like, hey, I entered this agreement with this cosigner, and like you can actually have that like on-chain anchored, being able to show that you have an agreement at a certain time and place. Actually, the real reason why I wanted to come on Hell Money is I want to show you on the next thing people should be inscribing.
All right, let's go. Let's hear it. Yeah.
Open timestamp proofs. Literally take the entire point of open timestamps, which is to have an off-chain proof and not have to occupy
Inscribe that
on-chain,
shit.
and just inscribe it.
Hell yeah.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, just I told this to Rindell. He said that is like the worst idea
Next
I've ever
$1
heard.
billion idea.
Yeah, love it. Love it.
Just the whole point of it is that you don't have to hold it on-chain, so why not just put it on-chain?
Hell yeah.
Real talk. Respect.
Yeah, that's utility.
It's so dumb.
What else do we need to cover?
I don't know.
Do you have questions for us?
Yeah.
I feel like as a, you're a
How
Hell
long
Money
have we
pod,
gone?
friend of the pod.
Like almost an hour.
Oh yeah,
Almost
nice.
an
Okay,
hour?
yeah.
Yep.
I'll be honest. This is the first podcast I've been nervous to go on.
Really?
in a
Why?
long
Oh
Come
my
time.
gosh.
Because I love you guys so much, and I love listening to Hell Money, and it's so left field to everything else like I listen to in like the Bitcoin podcast ecosphere.
Oh yeah, we're pretty out there. You
And
know?
I fucking
we
love
add
it.
some spice and diversity to the 40 hours per
That's
week.
right. It's
Entropy.
Daily
It's a DI
Digest.
podcast.
Yeah, it is.
As
it
they
is.
would call it, like you're adding entropy to the whole thing.
Yes,
right?
exactly.
Yeah, that's I mean, for questions that for you guys, I mean, just going to mention up now. Have you heard of the Bitcoin Bugle?
I have. Yeah.
So they do. I fucking love those guys. Like I'd say they're the journalists that our industry deserves.
Mm-hmm.
They
Yeah.
are. They are. They did live coverage of Inscribing Vegas. They
That's
did
right.
investigative reporting.
No, that's good.
Yeah, one of them was wearing a no ordinals hat
Yep.
and like a mask, and he scared quite a few people.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, they thought he was like.
They thought he was
like a maxi terrorist.
like he was gonna come in, detonate the vest, like and I was like, good work,
Yeah.
like it's good performance art.
Totally.
That's why I invited
Yeah.
them. I was like, I want that kind of.
Yeah.
I want to spark a little fear. At
They
my
did a really
public
good
event.
podcast with you too.
Yeah,
They're
yeah,
behind
yeah.
It's,
You set that up. That was great.
Yeah,
It
that
was
that was fun. I would love to get your guys' take. Because why I like you guys so much in many ways is you're orthogonal to all of Bitcoin culture, right? Like you and I, we should talk about how you and I met.
How did we meet?
We met in 2022. I was in town at Bitcoin Park,
Uh-huh.
and it was during the Open Source Summit, and you were going to do an ordinals workshop.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
And this is right as ordinals were taking off and went
Mhm.
really big.
Yep.
We were bullshitting and hanging out, and vibes were high.
Vibes
as the
were
kids
high.
say.
Vibes
As
were
the
very
kids
high.
say.
Yeah.
And you were tweeting out something to the effect of like, "I want someone to burn a monkey,"
Uh-huh.
and I told you I found someone who wants to burn their monkey.
Yep.
And I said, "What do we do next?" And Casey put his arm on my shoulder and said, "We write the code." And we literally went to this little corner nook. I'll have to like share the photo because it's so good.
Yeah.
CK from at the time Bitcoin Magazine, now at HRF,
Uh-huh.
took the photo. We're sitting there like killing ETH, right? And Casey like the whole teleburn protocol idea
Right. Yeah.
was
yeah.
live there on the spot.
So quick. Yeah.
And then-
Everything happened so fast.
and
Yeah.
you teleburned Rotomorta F.
Yeah.
and
That's
then-
right.
and
F was
then-
testnet. That was the tweet.
Yeah.
Yep.
And then we burned the monkey.
Yeah. Blonde Juan.
The blonde Don.
The blonde Don. That's right. Yeah.
Yeah, so that the monkey got burned.
Yep.
Uh,
Ultimately, a few miladies got burned too.
yes.
Random things got burned. Unfortunately, there's no way for ordinals.com to display the things that have been teleburned because then we would need an Ethereum implementation
Oh no.
to scan through all of the transactions.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it makes sense though. So
Someone
that
else
was
could spin it up.
Yep.
Yeah, and what I always loved about it too was that in the whole cultural wars of Bitcoin, you out cypherpunked everyone.
Right. And just with the
And
most
I-
pointless bullshit
I
imaginable.
tweeted that. I got so much shit for this. Like, why are you giving us? I'm like, he took a system of rules that we all agreed to called consensus, and he outplayed you all. And rather than just being like, that's Bitcoin, you were like, no,
This can't be Bitcoin.
Bitcoin is not literally the consensus code. It's my vibes and ideas of how I feel in podcasts
That's
about
right.
Bitcoin.
Yeah.
And just that was a whole rhetorical, just like mastery, just like assassin.
Retardical.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Rhetorical. Yeah, it really was. Yeah. And so that was a whole funny thing. And then it was right as Ordinals was taking off. And what was really funny was you did your workshop, and it was like people came in from like, oh, I drove 12 hours.
Yeah.
Like,
I signed somebody's laptop.
yeah. That was
The
wild.
fuck?
Wild.
Yeah.
That was very funny. And then getting to hang out and meet you, like your perspectives and views on cultural Bitcoin. Where do you guys think Bitcoin is culturally today with like this backdrop of this, like we were making, my buddies and I were making jokes about stablecoin 2022 in Miami 3 years ago.
Mhm.
And now it's like 100x more from that initial
Yep.
joke and the corporate adoption. Like, where do you guys see Bitcoin culture right now?
I think I've really gotten to the end of my ability to predict. Like I don't know if Bitcoin has ossified.
Mhm.
I guess I would be a little surprised if it has.
Yeah.
I think consensus just kind of happens suddenly and you don't really know it. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? It's like this sort of like, okay, everybody's talking, and then all of a sudden one proposal like obviously has a lot of weight behind it and people want to do it.
Yeah.
But we're entering a very weird, I mean, I keep saying this, we're entering a very weird, like very politicized portion of Bitcoin's history where all of a sudden Bitcoin is coming into contact with forces that are arguably stronger than it is. Not that are stronger than it is, but you can certainly make a case that all the world's governments are like on par with the power and strength of Bitcoin. And I hope that Bitcoin captures them, but it's a weird time. And it's fully past my, you could see like the axis of evil support Bitcoin in the West. All of a sudden it's like, oh no, Bitcoin is evil, or the opposite, or any other weird configuration. So it's just weird. I think number will go up for a while. Like it'll probably 10x from here. I just think that.
Yeah.
Not for any particularly good reason, but that like what the ultimate form of Bitcoin is still unknown. Like, is it freedom money or is it like pet rock in everybody's bank accounts? And But also, even if some small percentage of people can access Bitcoin and transfer money with it, I think it actually has an incredibly valuable like check on the financial system.
Sure.
Like it's never bothered me that obviously, so it's never bothered me the possibility that there would be a whole bunch of custodians and users interact with Bitcoin through custodians. If that is the main way that people use Bitcoin, simply because I think it might be an inevitability based on the block size, which we have to keep limited. But I sort of see it like, sort of email and like web services, right? We benefit from the open email network, even if everybody uses somebody else's email provider.
Sure.
And so I think we benefit from an open financial network, even if everybody does use some sort of intermediary. It's not as good, but being able to switch intermediaries and still be able to send and receive the same kind of money to and from the same people that you wanted to send it to, or the threat of starting a new intermediary and some weird hobbyists who are going to like do it themselves. And like companies are going to be like, okay, it makes sense for us to operate a Bitcoin node where we send and receive Bitcoin directly.
Yeah.
But it's just fully beyond my ability to predict
totally
like what's going to happen.
Fair enough.
I think in general, culture, like outside of Bitcoin, just generally speaking, cultures are becoming extremely like niched and disconnected from each other. You know, like I can live in one version of reality and someone else who's on Blue Sky or whatever can live in a totally different version of reality. And I think we're seeing that happen with Bitcoin, where like one of the things the Bugle guys said, when they came, so they like live podcasted, at Inscribing Vegas, and then like I came and like sat with them for a sec and was like, what do you guys think, whatever. And the thing that they were like the most shocked about was they were like, no one's a Fed here and no one's talking about paper Bitcoin. Like no one's talking about Bitcoin treasury companies. And like, yeah, it at Inscribing Vegas and at Ordinals events in general, you don't get people talking about the stablecoin dollarization of Bitcoin. It's like people being like, oh, I came up with this like weird little way to do some like funny JPEG stuff. And like, I made a little game on Bitcoin and whatever. It's like people are just sort of, like nerding out and having fun on it. And I think like it just speaks to like the cultural niches, right? Like the main conference, like B25 really leaned into this like corporate government like B7 idea of like what their event could be, where they like attract world leaders and corporations, and then they kind of try to like Trojan horse Bitcoin into like the institutions in order to destroy them from the inside. I think like a lot of people hate that in Bitcoin because they hate institutions, but I think that's a totally viable way of thinking about hyper Bitcoinization. Is that like people adopt it because of number go up technology and then it destroys them from the inside. Like that's totally fine with me. That's not our niche. I'm not super interested in that. Like I'm not going to be the one like to sit down with like Goldman Sachs and have that kind of meeting, but someone is. And like, you know, if the Baileys want to do that, like good for them. And then it's like, we can have our nerdy sort of like weird artsy cultural community of Bitcoin. And I don't know. It's like Bitcoin is for friends and enemies. Like that kind of expression, I think will just continue to play out more and more, where we'll just have like increasing cultural niches within Bitcoin that have more and less relevancy depending on how many people are attracted to it. And if we're sort of like splitting off where, you know, like Maxis, for example, like I don't go to Maxi conferences. I don't know what kind of conversations they're having. I imagine they're not
the same conversations they've always been having.
I guess like they're like, yeah, like we're all going to like live on a mountain and eat steak and have our trad wives in the kitchen or whatever. Like I guess
sovereign home birth workshops.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Sovereign home birth workshops. Like truly, like, but it's so I think it's just like it will increasingly culturally niche, where maybe right now we still have this like Bitcoin Twitter or whatever it is that like unites us all and we're all sort of in the same arena. But I think that will just become less and less true, where like my niche of Bitcoin will know less about your niche of Bitcoin. And maybe sometimes there's overlap and sometimes cross-pollination, but in general not. And I don't know. I think like from my perspective, it seems like the hardcore Maxi side that was very against ordinals has become less and less relevant, partially because like Swan kind of seemed like it collapsed. I don't know like what the state is, but they're not like having their conference anymore.
And they were a big like media presence on
Twitter. They were a propaganda network,
Bitcoin,
you know what I mean?
Whatever.
Yeah. Swan's propaganda machine sort of seemed to like grind to a halt with all of like Corey's issues. And at the same time, you know, there was like a contingency of Bitcoiners that were like leaning more into like corporate government Fed shit. And I think like Maxis ended up a little bit like homeless and all of that in a way. So I don't know. I don't mean to say like Maxis probably are like thriving in their own little niche, much like ordinals are thriving in their own little niche, and people might think they're dead because the fees are at like 1 sat per VByte. But I think that's just like increasingly going to be the case, that like Bitcoin won't be a monoculture anymore. Yeah. We'll have these like small decentralized little like cultures that you can kind of like go in and out of and see which part you resonate with the most.
Interesting. I mean, it makes sense because that's the fragmentation piece, I think, is really true. It was really interesting. The final speech at the conference was Ross Ulbricht,
Mm-hmm.
and the one right before him was Saylor. And Saylor finished his speech, and 30% of the venue left. And then people started. Some people came in, but like it meaningfully decreased in the amount of people that were there. And to your point around like corporate adoption and stuff, Shinobi calls it's either compliance or degeneracy. Like you have to actually pick. Like
Yes, that's
like
what I think too.
the core tension here is that if you want to just be super safe and compliant, and it's like, oh, like, and you see these arguments of like, what will Goldman Sachs think if they're seeing dick butts on chain? It's like they literally do not care.
They have not even seen them. They don't know they exist.
No, they don't run nodes. They can't see them.
Well, I mean, it's like initially some technology starts off with like a community of early adopters where the community makes sense. And then eventually just the word community no longer makes sense. Like, is there a money community?
Internet community.
An internet community? Like, not really. I mean, like internet community, like, yeah.
I do think that there's like a scary aspect of like new oligarchy that is emerging a little bit with Bitcoin, where it's like if this ends up being the fastest wealth transfer in all of human history, like that will make for a lot of weird, like social cultural things that emerge from that. Right?
I have a friend. He's I think he's a little bit paranoid. He's maybe a lot paranoid. He's really worried about the fact that a lot of very, very, very early adopters of Bitcoin were people who were like buying access to child pornography sites on Tor, like very, very early. And so they got into Bitcoin very, very early. So that there's this like international ring of like 1,000+ Bitcoin pedophiles, like this new like pedophilic.
Well, that's
like
just
Bitcoin
the same
elite.
as it is right now. You know what I mean? The pedophiles run the world currently.
New boss, same
Maybe
as
that's
the old
just
boss.
a rule.
It's interesting too, because the nature of Bitcoin's supply schedule and issuance, 50% of the coins were issued between 2019 and 2013. 50% of all the Bitcoin that will ever exist, right? And so that early supply distribution definitely skews to the people that are going to become new power brokers, and people got in early. And if it's not the pedophile cabal, like people that were buying drugs on the Silk Road, right? You get all these different like sects of people when they come in, and then you have a huge part of them too that are just like libertarian gold bugs, right? And it's all just going to be this interesting coalition.
Yep.
You're seeing that already though, like with the political influence, like Bailey taking over the world and spinning up companies and stuff. Like it's starting like early stages playing that out. And for these Bitcoin treasury companies, I don't know how each individual one's playing out. A way it could be though is this is like the capitalization of the future of Bitcoin banks, because in a Bitcoin banking native world, you're going to want to, if you're a large financial institution, you don't store it at a small regional bank. You go to a GSIB, a globally systemic important bank. And so you're going to want to, like, if you want Bitcoin banking services, you want someone who has a large balance sheet of Bitcoin where if something goes wrong, they can make you whole, which is like tying back to that idea of like insurance.
But it's interesting too, because you also don't want someone who's like, I was talking to some guy from Fidelity about this yesterday, where like, you know, you do want maybe the company that you're buying a stock of or whatever. I'm not a fucking finance person, but like you maybe want them to hold 5% of their treasury in Bitcoin and like adopt some of these things because like you get that stabilizing force, but you don't want them building some Rube Goldberg machine of like debt and leverage around trying to just like make number go up on the stock ticker to the point that it collapses and the Bitcoin can't bail them out. Right. So there is some like fine line where I think, I don't know, it's like a Tower of Babel situation where it's just like, maybe there are some of these Bitcoin treasury companies that are really doing it in a great way where it does make it like a good solid investment or whatever you want to call it, where if you need to put your 401k funds into something that's, and you can't directly put it into Bitcoin, you put it into these companies because they hold Bitcoin and it's in direct access, whatever. But like, but that like some large percent probably are building these like crazy, like chasing the yield structures that will collapse. And like, I don't know, you know, I think there's just like an inevitability of like chasing greed in general, where something that I've also noticed with, maybe not like, this is actually something I like about the maxis, like the maxi, like stake maxis, is that for every other group in Bitcoin, I think with the exception of that group, the return on Bitcoin as itself never seems to be enough. Like the greed always, like with ordinals people in crypto, it's like they always want more and more and more. With like the Bitcoin treasury company, kind of like gold bug people, it's like more and more and more. And I think like there is, I mean, greed's a sin, right? For like, and I think it's just because it like feeds itself more and more. The more that you think, oh, I need to just like make number go up as much as possible without actually adding any value to the world, the more that you're taking on risk and then eventually like collapsing, because I don't know, I think there's like, there's just some sort of like universal human archetype nature to that I think a lot of Bitcoiners fall into. And one of the things that I tell people whenever they're like, oh ma, like I wish that I hadn't like spent my Silk Road Bitcoin on weed, or, you know, I wish that I had bought Bitcoin when I first heard about it, is I'm like, the fact that you even like think that way when right now you have the opportunity to buy Bitcoin at 100K or whatever it was like 6 months ago, means that you never would have made it in the first place.
Bingo.
You know what I mean? Like Bitcoin would have hit 20K and you would have cheated the whole supply. Like that's what you people do. You know, like it's like it takes like a mental fortitude. And so I honestly think also part of it, like that's why I bring up like the wackiness of like if this is actually the greatest wealth transfer ever in human history, most people who win the lottery like lose everything and go bankrupt,
absolutely.
right? And so I think like
they wind up worse off, in fact.
Exactly. So I think there's an aspect of like I don't know, this just like plays into like general like Age of Aquarius themes like overall, but like you have to also evolve personally with the transformation that's happening in your life. Otherwise it will be taken from you. And so like, I don't know, I think Bitcoiners in general just like need to become mentally healthier, physically healthier.
Yeah.
And that's where I was saying like the maxis have it a little bit like where they do kind of realize
like
there's
they're doing like they're aware of their diet, they're avoiding seed oils.
Yeah, they are trying
they're working out, you know.
I get to this point all the time that like I think I view Bitcoin as a means to an end. It can't be the end itself. And I think a lot of this like treasury number, like it's like Bitcoin for the sake of Bitcoin. And I view Bitcoin as a tool to enable my life, my family, and things I want to do. Like I peeled off a small slice of Bitcoin when I went to go do that coding bootcamp.
Yep.
Worth it.
Yep.
Like I'm never gonna like cry about that opportunity cost because who I am as a person is more enriched like in a non-monetary way, in such a way that like the idea of like never sell your Bitcoin. It's like to me it speaks to an incomplete version of the world, and you're kind of like hanging yourself on the greed and like we're just gonna rally so high. So there's good parts about that, right? Of like abstaining and having like lower time preference, but at some point, you know, you have a life and a family and goals and things you want to do.
It's an observation that I think both me and Aaron have made, that our favorite degens in the space are people where they have like big components of their life that are not the space.
Yes.
They have a family, they have some hobby, they have kids, you know, they like to go out and touch grass. They don't live in New York or San Francisco or LA. They live, a lot of the best degens live in some random city, you know, that they're like, and that it's this fun thing they do on the internet and they go do the rest of their life.
I actually have like a big point too, where like, I don't talk about Bitcoin around my kids really. I don't really talk about it with my wife ever. Like, I mean, when we first started, like not when we were first dating, this is 10 years into dating, she would come, she was
10 years after you were abducted as a child bride from Western Afghanistan. When you could first
purchase alcohol. Story.
Yeah. She was doing her PhD in Boston and then would come to visit me when I was living in New York City. Around the time I got into Bitcoin, I'm like, oh, you're coming over. We're going to watch the Khan Academy YouTube series on Bitcoin. You know, right? Like, so she suffered through that in the early stages. I also view it as
that's how you know that she's the one.
But the fact that I've been with her 10 years before I got into Bitcoin, I view as also like a blessing, right? Like I don't have to worry. Like it's just something that's super pre-baked in. And she's always been really supportive of everything across every part of the journey, and not having to worry about like, that's not something I envy as people that are like super into Bitcoin and trying to like find people to be with. Like that's tough. Like I can only imagine like it's tough.
We
like,
locked it down.
It's a smart move. Yeah. I got to meet your fiance.
Yes. Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah. No, similarly.
Thus implying that I am not Aaron's fiance and that I am single.
No.
Just throwing it out
He's
there.
He's looking for a barefoot and pregnant Bitcoin wife who only eats steak and no seed oils.
Absolutely.
We're now pivoting this into a love finder like search. So what are you looking for?
That's already what we have been on the How Money podcast.
Yeah. So your ideal partner, no Bitcoin knowledge or anything at all?
I don't know. It's tough to say.
I think she has to get it at least a little bit, or at least think it's funny that you do it.
I think the values are the important thing. Anti-authoritarian values are probably like
I think she has to have like a good sense of humor. I feel like that's the main thing. Like she has to be able to like you're offensive and contrarian, and like you have weird ideas that are not like socially acceptable to probably a lot of people. And like I think that's like funny and fine.
What signs is she probably?
I think you could do really well with a Virgo with a sense of humor. Sagittarius could be interesting for you.
I like goats.
I don't think a Capricorn.
Oh, I always mix them up.
No,
mix them up.
It kind of depends. I don't know. It's like I think. Yeah, I Capricorns are my fiance is a Capricorn. I love Capricorns. They are good ones. But you're it's a little bit too like butting heads between Aries and Capricorn.
I see. Yeah.
So my wife is a Virgo. Give me a rundown on Virgo.
You guys are opposite signs. You have like a really Virgo Pisces axis, which you're a Pisces, as I said, triple water sign before. Lots of Scorpio energy though. That's like what's the scary part. But it's good that you're a Pisces sun, because Pisces are like cute and sensitive. So it's like it mellows it out a little bit. But Virgo Pisces are opposite signs, and the axis that they deal with is control. So Virgos are always trying to like control more things, and Pisces are always like relinquishing control, but it's like the two can balance each other very well if like both of them learn to be a little bit more like the other. Pisces needs to like not just be like, oh, I'm like falling into the sea of things and like just like allowing yourself to dissolve into the ether. And Virgo needs to like do that a little bit.
Okay.
So it's a good balance like between the two signs.
Got it.
Also Virgo women in general, it's like one of the best like female signs.
Agreed.
So yeah, I think like a Virgo woman you're also Virgo rising. So it's like there's a good synastry there as well.
Nice.
But yeah, I don't know. I think sense of humor is like the big thing, honestly.
For sure. Yeah.
Sense of humor.
Yeah.
Easygoing.
I think sense of humor, self-deprecating,
Put up with my
like being able
foibles.
to, have fun in life.
Yeah. Exactly. What else do we need to talk about?
I think that's pretty much everything.
Yeah, we weaved around.
You've
from
been
esports.
you've been on fire.
I've been on fire.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
On
wow.
point. Yeah, this has been
Well,
amazing.
Rob really perked me up.
Absolutely.
You know?
Oh, thank you.
We've been trying to get you on this damn podcast for so long.
Well, that's why I knew that you've told me that there was an opening. I actually stayed the extra day originally to go do the World Series of Poker, and then you offered. I was like, easily Hell Money podcast.
Hell yeah.
Hell Money
yeah.
podcast.
Hell yeah.
That was the easiest trade of my life for sure. This has been amazing.
Are you a good poker player?
It's actually not. I haven't played in a long time. It's actually Bitcoin's part of my poker journey is Bitcoin because I got into poker after Black Monday when they banned all online poker.
Yeah.
And they didn't make online poker legal. They made bank transfers.
So this was a big wave of people getting into Bitcoin. They needed Bitcoin to
I always just assumed
gambling.
that poker people liked Bitcoin because there's like it makes sense for their brains, but that makes sense. Is actually
I
an
actually don't
onboarding
even know
wave.
if it makes sense for their brains.
Well, gambling and risk-adjusted justice, risk-adjusted buttons.
It's a combination of like understanding like stats, and also like social behavior. So there's like a level of like game theory with poker players that and they're willing to take on like high risk and high volatility and not like flinch.
That's exactly it. Like you're willing to put all of your money in the middle. If you're just like mathematically, am I more likely to make money than not?
Yes.
Right. And so that's the bet with Bitcoin. Like I'm going to buy this and I can ride out that volatility.
Yeah.
For sure. This is a big overlap on that. Yeah. And so that's how I got into Bitcoin. Like that, the Dogecoin story and the poker story were all happening at the same time. And that was a big part of like my journey, but I haven't played in so long. Like it was going to be literally.
I've been training. I'm playing after this.
Oh,
we're going to go to Fremont Street and play some poker.
Hell yeah. That would be fun.
Yeah.
That'd be fun.
Yep.
Good shit.
Hell yeah. Cool. Well, thank you so much for coming, Rob. We love having you.
Great
Thank
episode.
you for having me. Yeah.
I can't wait to see what's next for AnchorWatch and your absolutely guaranteed wild success.
Absolutely. I always tell people like AnchorWatch is my favorite like normie Bitcoin company. Like normie Bitcoin because it's not like an ordinals company, it's mostly my exposure
it's
to
this hilarious
Bitcoin
balance
companies.
of like, oh, you're doing like what are you doing on chain for an insurance? I'm like, no, it's really boomer traditional insurance with Bitcoin tech.
It is, but it's just a really good example of Bitcoin fixes this,
Yeah, trying. Yeah.
Like
yeah,
I like seeing those things because I think it's simple stuff that I wish people were trying to do more. I mean, actually a point I didn't, sorry, now I'm derailing our departure, but like one of the things I didn't get to say was
on fire.
Something that does worry me about Bitcoin, like kind of where things are headed, is that I think because number go up is so strong, it's hard to incentivize people to build good Bitcoin products because like as a VC or as just like a Bitcoiner in general, you might as well just buy Bitcoin and like ride that number. Why work for it?
Yeah.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
And I think there's almost like a wave of Bitcoiners that I hope get so rich that they just fuck off, and then like a new wave that's maybe like closer to my age, a little bit younger. Yeah, that like recognize they need to get exposure to this and they need to like add value in order to get more exposure to it.
Exactly.
And I want to see more people making Bitcoin companies because I've noticed with Bitcoin companies, some of them are just completely non-functional, but because they hold their treasury in Bitcoin, they're able to exist and they don't really care about competing in the free market. And I want to see like more competition.
Totally. And we're a small, lean team doing all these really crazy, like in the sense of like advancing the tech forward. I view that very much from that spirit. And when I started building all this, I was like, why is no one doing any of this? There's so many Bitcoin companies laying around. Why is it falling to me? And it was a humbling experience also realizing that like there was a massive opportunity in being able to add value in new, unique, interesting ways that was kind of zagging when everyone else was like going left versus right.
Yeah.
Like it was a different way to go add value. Really, and that's like my sense of meaning is like, sure, some level of financial success, but it was like, I care about Bitcoin. I want to challenge myself in a career professional domain, and the highest leverage and like stressful way and like the highest bar to try and jump over was being an entrepreneur, but not just being an entrepreneur in Bitcoin. And that derives a lot of meaning in trying to do
Proof
that.
of work, baby.
Absolutely. Yeah. Not just a saying, way of life.
Hell yeah. All right. Well, thanks, Rob. This is great.
Thanks so much.
Check out AnchorWatch,
AnchorWatch.com.
AnchorWatch.com.
Check out Rob on
go.
X as well.
Yeah.
He's a great poster.
Rob One Ham on Twitter. Yeah. X.
Robert Donald Hamilton III.
That's right.
That's right.
Yep, absolutely.
All right.
Peace.
Bye, guys.
Later, y'all.